So, recursion modified. Yeah.
This card don't read so good. Wake up. Let's card the set. What the hell is this? Best in show. All right, what is up, my friends? Welcome to the complete set review for Aetherdrift. Cool intro, right? Cassidy killed it on that one. So, welcome, of course. Set review for Aetherdrift. I'll be doing every single card in the entire set. We're doing constructed. We're doing limited. All organized nice and neat by color. We're going to give out all the awards you know and love, like Best in Show, our Trap card, our Bombin Common, and our Sleeper card, and more as we prep for 10 new brews, for Bronze to Mythic, and the Pro Tour is coming up. A lot's happening. I leave for the Pro Tour in like 2 weeks. Pretty crazy. So, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button. Leave a comment, subscribe, support the content if you like the show. And like I'm doing here at Set Review, a lot of work goes into these. Hit the button, support the content, don't be shy. All right, let's do this. We're starting out with white. I want to remind you, of course, about 10 new brews happening this coming Wednesday on early access for Arena, which is awesome, by the way. We got 10 new brews. Gonna be a lot of fun, of course, as always. And we got Bronze to Mythic happening. All right, next Tuesday, the 11th, the release of a set. I'll be firing up some drafts for Bronze to Mythic. And we'll be drafting all week. And then I leave on the 15th for the Pro Tour Aetherdrift. All right, so that's what's going on. Hit the buttons, support the content, and let's do this. Starting off with our very first card here, in Air Response Unit. Now, of course, this set is a vehicle set. There's a lot of vehicles in the set, a lot of artifacts in the set, and we'll go over all the mechanics as we see them and give them a little explanation and go from there. So Air Response Unit is just a 3-mana, 3/3, Flying Vigilance, and Crew 1. So, of course, vehicles they're pretty good, right? They're usually undercosted. Of course, a 3/3 Flying Vigilance for 3 is quite good, but crewing requires you to have a crew to do something with the card. It's kind of like an equipment where without other things, it doesn't do anything. So be aware of that. Your draft deck can't have like 14 vehicles and 3 actual creatures. That's not going to work. All right, so that in mind, this card's pretty good. You know, sizing is okay. I think also really, really important on vehicles is your crew cost, all right? A crew cost of 1 is the lowest possible crew cost and by far the best. That means any random token or a little crap if it's in play can crew. Once you get to 2, you're all right. And once you're in the 3 and above range, now you're tapping a real creature to make a creature. So if I tap a 3/3 to crew my Air Response Unit, it's okay, you know, you get in the air or whatever, but a thing to be aware of for sure. So crew cost of 1 here is a big selling point. This card seems fine. There are ways in the set to animate vehicles without actually using a creature, and there's obviously a lot of thought put into the set as far as ways to use vehicles, so you're not having that kind of downside. But this card seems like an okay limited card. Nothing too crazy overall. Just kind of fine. You know, decent bodies, decent stat line, gets in the air. Obviously, there's also synergy for having vehicles and artifacts. If you have that going on, it gets better. But overall, I think this card's just okay. You know, a little worse than it looks. Don't be fooled by the keywords in the stat line as compared to the mana value, because the crew cost is a real cost. Next up, we have Alcririan Armory. 2 cards in, we're already saying things wrong. 4 mana for an artifact. Creatures you control get +0/+1 and a vigilance. And beginning combat on your turn, you may choose up to 1 target mount or vehicle and then crew it. So now there also are mounts in the set, more on them in a little bit. But as I was just saying, there are a lot of ways in the set to kind of crew things without crewing them. That being said, this card seems a little, still a piece of garbage. A little stinky here. 4 mana for an artifact that doesn't really do anything is a pretty tough ask, you know? There's a lot of little bonuses here. Giving Vigilance is pretty cool. It allows you to crew on your opponent's turn on defense. A little toughness boost is kind of nice. And then, of course, being able to just crew things is nice too. But when you put a lot of vehicles in your deck, you're already having the problem of like, well, what if I can't use these? And now you just have another artifact where it makes it so you're kind of like, well, what if I have this and not those? So I don't know. This is probably not a very good limited card. I can imagine a scenario where your draft deck is like actually perfect for this card and maybe it could work, but I think those are going to be few and far between. This card should mostly not see play in any draft deck, and obviously not a card for constructed. Next up is Basri, tomorrow's champion. Basri? Kind of cool. 1 mana for a 2/1. So mana lines come a long way, right? Good types here in both human and knight. Basri has the Exert ability, which is an ability from, what's that? Was it from Amonkhet, right? Where you can tap it and exert it, and it basically gets stunned. It won't untap for a turn. 1 mana, tap, exert, make a 1/1 lifelink cat token, which is a pretty powerful ability, honestly. Obviously, without exert, this ability would be insane. Even with it, it gives some utility to your creature if it can't attack or block, which is nice. It also has a cycling ability. Cycling returns of a set. Cycling is very simply pay a cost, discard this card, and draw a card. Although some cards like Basri have an ability attached to that. So whenever you cycle Basri, cats you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Now, of course, there is some cat synergy left over from Foundation, so there is some cat things happening there. Also pretty funny that Basri is just like this crazy cat guy. Like, just really likes cats, you know? And, but yeah, so the reality here is that, like, while there's a lot of text in this card as far as, like, the cycling and the cat stuff, realistically, this is just, like, a 2/1 human legendary creature for synergy stuff that has an ability that's pretty useful. So, think Mox Amber and Pioneer, think maybe human decks, and then if you're looking for a 1-drop in your standard deck, seems reasonable as well. Great limited card, too, right? Just a 1-drop that has use as the game goes on is pretty cool, too. So, yeah, honestly, Basri's pretty cool. So Basri's nice, cool card. Nothing crazy, nothing outlandish, but great limited card. Definitely a playable constructed card, and one that I'm looking forward to playing. Brightfield Glider is next. Not a flying squirrel, though, unfortunately. 1 mana for a 1/1 vigilance. Whenever it attacks while saddled, it gets +1/+2 against flying on turn. What's saddle? Saddle is basically just crew for creatures. So saddle was introduced pretty recently in Outlaws Thunder Junction, and saddle allows where a vehicle is not actually doing anything until you crew it with a creature. A saddle creature is already a creature, but you get a bonus if you saddle it. Now, saddle 3 is a lot. As I said, the power level of saddle numbers and crew numbers exponentially goes up. Saddle and crew 1 is awesome. Saddle and crew 2 is fine. Saddle and crew 3 is like a lot. 3, you're tapping a serious creature here of this effect. And then more than that, it's just like in the crazy range. This card seems pretty mediocre. The base rate of what you're getting here is a 1/1. It's a kind of weh. And then like tapping a 4-drop to give this thing flying is all seems kind of meh. So if your draft deck has like some serious need for cheap creatures and synergy with like mounts, I guess, but this card seems pretty mediocre overall. Brightfield Mustang, 4 mana for a 3/3. Another mount, whenever this creature attacks while saddled, untap it and put a counter on it, and then saddle 1. So of course, saddle 1, infinitely better than saddle 3. This card is okay. It's like your limited filler 4-drop. We see this in every set, which is like a ton of like these filler cards where if it's in your deck, it probably isn't embarrassing, It does grow, which is nice. Pretty cheap saddle cost. And the fact that it untaps and can play defense by itself or by crewing something else is kind of cool too. But like, you're just never taking this card highly in your draft decks. Like, it just, replacement level card. You'd much rather have a rare or uncommon 4-drop, but this thing will do in a spot, I guess. So, is it is. Broadcast Ramblers next. 5 mana for a 5/4 vehicle. When it enters, make a 1/1 colorless Thopter creature token with flying and has crew 1. So kind of cute here, where we see this vehicle that comes along with a creature that can crew it. So it's kind of just like a 5/4 that already crews by itself. It is 2 bodies, which is kind of cool too, but the 5/4 stat line's kind of meh. And if this was 2 bodies, like if I play this thing and I immediately had 2 blockers to use, it would be awesome. But the fact that it's basically just a 5/4 for 5 is, I don't know, not too great. I think this card's mostly filler, not very exciting. Bulwark Ox, however, is going to be our best in show for white. Luminarch Aspirant, is that you? Is that you? Bulwark Ox, 2 mana for a 2/2 Ox mount. Whenever this creature attacks while saddled, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Then you can sacrifice this creature to give creatures that you control with counters on them hexproof and indestructible to end of turn. And the saddle cost is that all-important 1 number. So this is a bear. You play it. The next thing you play saddles it, you attack and start putting counters places, and that's pretty awesome. And then the thing you counter onto, this can also protect. So if you're doing like a lot of counter stuff, which there is a lot of in standard right now, with Innkeeper's Talent and stuff like that, it's quite powerful, and this can protect them as well, which is cool. It's cheap, it's efficient, it's easy to saddle, and the cheap saddle costs are pretty cool because they kind of give the creature pseudo haste, right? Where like I play this thing on 2, I play a 3-drop. it can't attack anyway, so I just saddle up and get in, which is kind of cool too. So I think this card's pretty awesome. Of course, a big issue here is, of course, Sunfall being the sweeper of choice usually, which exiles, which is kind of tough. But yeah, this card's pretty awesome. Pretty big fan of it. Best in show. There's like some pretty sweet cards in white that have some sleeper status. I think this card's, my best in show. And then limited this card's obviously awesome. And don't forget, there is some standard synergy waiting in the wings here from both Outlaws Thunder Junction and Duskmourn, whereas Outlaws had a mount theme. That's where mounts first came from, and there are cards that care about mounts. And then there's the Survivor theme in Duskmourn, which are the creatures that want to be tapped to do things, and they play perfectly with mounts. So there's also a lot of synergy laden in these new mount cards and vehicle cards in past sets, which is kind of cool. So Ox is great. Also, just a banger limited card. Obviously, it shouldn't need to be explained. So Canyon Vaulter's next. 2 mana for a 3/1. It's a pilot. Whenever a creature saddles a mount or vehicle during your turn, it gains flying. Just a fine 2-drop in limited, Kind of weird because if you're saddling with this thing, obviously it's not attacking, and it's a 3-power creature. This card's fun. Pretty solid limited card. It's a fine 2-drop, has some upside. The game bogs down, you get things in the air. Attacks for 3 on turn 3. Just a fine card. Fine limited card, nothing more. Cloudspire Captain. 3 mana for a 2/3. This is an anthem for your mounts and vehicles, which admittedly is not that exciting. Whenever the saddles a mount, this creature saddles mounts and vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. So it has the pilot text. Kind of weird because there are pilots that don't have a text, but there are tokens in the set that are pilots that have this cruise for bigger ability. Usually they're 1/1s, but they crew as if they were 3/1s. So this can crew with larger vehicles, which is fine. That being said, this is just a 2/3 for 3 with some pretty mild abilities. Fine limited card for sure, but constructed, this card's not going to make it. I don't think that a mount or a vehicle deck is going to be that exciting constructed, and not going to want this thing that dies to cut down and everything else. Doesn't think so necessary. But good draft card, pretty cool. Tron vibes. Tron was a cool ride, Disney World, by the way. That was a sweet ride. Collision Course, 2 mana for a sorcery. Choose one. Deals X damage to our creature, where X is the number of permanents you control that are creatures and or vehicles, or destroy target artifacts. Good limited card, honestly. Really solid removal spell for your draft decks. This will usually do 3 or 4 damage, which is great. And then destroying artifacts is nice too. It is a little finicky where it might not kill the bigger thing you actually want to kill. But yeah, card's fine. It's a good solid little card. Good draft card, good removal spell. If it was an instant, I think it'd be a lot higher pick. But as it stands, I think it's just a fine pick. Nothing super exciting, fine limited card. It's a me, Mario. This is one of 4 Mario Kart references in this set. I think that they're going a little too far with this hokey pokey stuff, but whatever. That's just me. Dairy Mechanic, 3 mana for a 3/3. It's a human artificer. 4 mana, put a counter on a creature. I'm sorry, on a mount or vehicle. So this is your typical limited mana sink kind of card. Stat line's fine. Card's okay. Mostly limited filler. Obviously, if your deck needs a mana sink or needs things to do in late game, this can sort of do that at not very exciting. But yeah, so it's just a filler limited card. Nothing crazy. The Tension Chariot.
They have a warrant for your arrest. You're going to jail.
6 mana for a 6/6 artifact vehicle. When it enters, exile target artifact creature opponent controls until this vehicle leaves the battlefield. It's got crew 3. It also has cycling for 1 white. Cycling returns, and these 1 mana cycling costs are really, really powerful. All right, don't underestimate these because they are excellent. Cycling for 1 mana is just phenomenal. Really, really powerful modal effect to have. So this card's obviously expensive, but cycling makes up for that. This is a great limited card. ETBs gets their best creature, and then Crew 3 is certainly palatable enough for a 6/6. And most importantly, unlike other creatures that ETB and get a thing, and if it dies, they get it back. You can kind of be a little more careful with this, right? It's not a creature all the time, so it's less vulnerable, and you can wait till they're tapped out, whatever else it might be. So, good limited card here, pretty well sized, and again, that cycling cost really, really removes a lot of a downside of putting a 6 mana card in your deck. Obviously not for constructed. I don't think, honestly, you'd be surprised. The 1 mana cycling cards have actually seen decent play constructed, so it's not out of the realm of possibility for sure. Gallant Strike, 2 mana for an instant uncommon. Destroy a creature power with toughness 4 or greater as cycling 2. So again, cycling 2 is the more generic cycling cost. 2 is obviously a lot more than 1. Just math and stuff. But still very, very palatable. And then we've got a reasonable removal spell here, and the kind of like cycling often goes well on these modal cards, where you have like this effect. It's like pretty powerful if it works, but might be dead. Cycle it. It doesn't work too. So that being said, it is competing with, Destroy Evil and Valorous Stance and Standard. So probably not there really, but certainly a good option to have it constructed. And then limited this card's great. Kill their bomber, cycle it. That's awesome. Glory Heath Lynx. I wanted to give us a sleeper award, but there's just like a bunch of good sleeper cards in white. I like this card a lot. This card is frankly great.
My cat's breath smells like cat food.
2 mana for a 2/3 lifelink. Whenever it attacks while saddled, search for a basic plains, put it in your hand, then shuffle, and the saddle cost is 2. If the saddle cost was 1, this would have gotten the sleeper award. But again, 2 is like just a lot more than 1 because you can't crew with some random token or whatever. With Fountain Port and Mirrors in the format, Saddle 1 is infinitely better than Saddle 2. So that being said, card's still great. A 2/3 lifelink for 2 is just like already really, really good and limited. And then fine and constructed. And if this thing ever draws you 1 card, you're stoked. If it draws you 2 cards, awesome. Now, obviously you're drawing basic planes on actual cards, but that's great. Keep making land drops. There's Magic. There's no problem with drawing spells these days in Magic. So keep playing with lands. Keep doing your thing. Really, really good uncommon. Definitely has a chance to show up constructed in like a mono white deck or some sort of mount deck. And then in limited, this card is just like a mythic uncommon. Just super, super awesome stuff. Next up is Guardian Sunmare. 5 mana for a 5/5 horse mount. It's got Ward 2. It's a 5/5. Whenever it attacks while saddled, search your library for a non-land permanent card, mana value 3 or less, put it on the battlefield and shuffle. So holy hell, that is a really powerful ability. You can go into your deck and get a temporary lockdown. You can get a, I don't know, whatever your heart desires, basically. That's really, really powerful. But then you get down to Saddle 4. Now, as I said, the saddle curve, it's like a real exponential, curve up. Saddle 1 is awesome. Saddle 2 is pretty good. Saddle 3 is a lot. Anything over 3 is just like an unbelievable amount. Think about what you got to tap to saddle this thing. So now you have this 5-drop in play. It lived. I untapped. I have another thing in play with 4 power. Then I crew it. Then I attack. That's just a lot to ask. So in limited, this card's a huge bomb, right? Because in limited, you're going to have random 4-drops just like laying around and stuff. But for constructed, it's tough. It really, really is tough. Ward 2 helps a little bit, but Ward 2 isn't that much on a 5-drop because they can just cast Go for the Throat and pay 4 mana for it. And of course, Nowhere to Run's also a card in the format too. So I think this card is it's very, very powerful. It maybe has a chance because it is really, really powerful. But overall, I think this card's most just a limited card. And constructed just doesn't quite get there. Guide Light Synergist is next. This is a 4-mana 0/4 flying robot artificer. Beep boop. And it's a flying creature that gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. There is some serious artifact stuff in this set, which is important for 2 reasons. 1, obviously in limited, you're going to want to know what you're doing with your artifacts, stuff like that too. But 2, there's a lot of cards in standard right now. And there were a number of artifacty sets that are currently legal. I think Brothers War is still legal, right? Maybe. I don't even know it's legal anymore. But there's definitely good artifact stuff that's legal that you can look back to and be like, oh yeah, it's Ixalan or not Brothers War. I don't even know, whatever. But there's plenty of artifact things in standard that are good but aren't quite there. And then when you add a few extra pieces to it, maybe they go back and go, oh, those cards are now good enough, which is cool. So that being said, this card's not going to be playable constructed, but it's a great limited card. Is this Wally? Oh, it's Wally. Great. Fantastic. And we have a few artifacts in play. This is a 4/4 flyer. That's awesome. So great limited card. This card in particular is not going to be played constructed, but keep an eye out for all the artifact cards as we go along. Wally. Interference Ace. 2 mana for another 0/4, another robot, beep boop. This is going to be a common creature that saddles, mounts, and crews vehicles for its toughness rather than its power. And whenever it becomes tapped during your turn, you can untap it only once a turn. So this is like your ultimate crew, right? So this thing sits in play. It can block early, which is great. And then this has the ability to crew all of your high crew costs in limited. So I have this random, I have this 5-drop crew 4 or whatever. This can crew that. And it actually untaps to crew again. This is like the ultimate crew. which is great. So if your draft deck cares about that, cool. And the base rate here of like an 0-4 blocker for 2 mana, that's also an artifact for like affinity stuff, is pretty cool too. So like this card a lot. I think this is a cool limited card. Definitely if you're playing, you know, a vehicle-y, mounty, whatever deck, this card does that pretty well. Playing an artifact deck does that pretty well too. And yeah, card's cool. You know, is it a high pick? I'm not sure, honestly. But it does seem like a very, very serviceable limited card. It has a role, it has a job, and does it very, very well. Leonin Surveyor, 2 mana for a 2/2. Start your engines! I don't have my sounds yet for this set, unfortunately. That's going to be for whatever, we're getting there, all right? But
Fool of a took.
Start your engines is a new mechanic that says basically you play a start engine cards and you get a counter. Kind of like the ring tempts you or the initiative, just really, really simple, all right? So I have a speed, it's at 1. Whenever you deal damage to your opponent, whenever your opponent loses life during your turn, the speed will go up by 1, but only once a turn, all right? So play Leonin Surveyor, I have a Suntail Hawk in play, I attack, I'm at speed 1, then I go to speed 2. Once you get to speed 4, you are at max speed. That's it. It caps. So it's kind of cool because like it's kind of like the ring tempts you, right? Where it's a 4-level thing that gets better as it goes on. But rather than have all this extra baggage of like needing this ring tempts you token that explains what all the ring stuff does, it's just a number, and then the cards say what they do. So like the implementation here of this mechanic a lot. It's pretty simple. Max speed is the most commonly seen use of speed. So getting up to 4 speed is really, really important. Although there are a few cards that will care about your speed and give you an effect for the number of speed that you have. For the most part, your goal is just to get to max speed. And then once you hit max speed, you're there. I don't think any way to remove it. I think there's one way to remove it the entire set. And so for the most part, you're on 4, you're max speed, you're good, and your max speed effect turns on. So this is a 2/2. That's a first striker on your turn. Great aggro creature. It has max speed. 3, exile this card from your graveyard, draw a card. That's awesome. There's a cycle of these. There's 1 in every color. Really powerful effect where we have this good body creature that's very, very good to be attacking early. And then when it dies and trades off or whatever it's going to do, late in the game, you just have this card in your graveyard. You can just pay 3 and just draw, assuming that you've made to your max speed. So this is a phenomenal limited card. It's excellent. Came close to winning Bombin Common, didn't quite get there, but really, really good draft card. And again, its mechanic's cool. I like it, honestly. So, cool stuff. Light Shield Parry, 1 mana for an instant, +2/+2, and cycling 2. This is just your really average, limited trick. I think adding cycling to a trick is okay, but not great. If you're playing an aggro deck in limited and you're cycling this, you're probably not winning that game anyway. So just kind of whatever. But yeah, it's okay. We see this card in every set. Still, finicky limited trick, and that's that. Lightwheel Enhancements. We got our Bombin Common, folks. This card is awesome. 1 mana for an aura. It enchants a creature or a vehicle. It has start your engines, so it starts up your engine cycle. The permanent you enchant gets +1/+1, has vigilance. And then most importantly, it has max speed. You may cast this card from your graveyard. Now, it's important to note that when you start your engines, that does not count towards the 1 a turn limit of speeding. So you start your engine. So if I play a 1-drop, right? Then on turn 2, I cast the Lightwheel enhancements on it. I start my engines, I go to 1. I can just attack and immediately go to 2. So now it's turn 2 and we're already halfway to max speed, which is huge. That's really, really important. So cards that allow you to kind of like start your engines and then attack immediately or get a good attack in and get up to 2 is huge because you're halfway there. And then once this thing gets max speed, you can just cast this thing over and over and over and over again, like kind of Rancor style, which is awesome. So you're just constantly buffing your creatures over and over and over again, which is great. This card just seems phenomenal to me. Excellent limited card. And also a constructed card as well. Because in auras decks, you're always looking for auras you can just keep casting over and over again. A card like, what was the escape card called? I forgot. Tricloptian Sight? No. I forgot what it's called. But like, Sentinel's Eyes, thank you. Sentinel's Eyes, that card is great. It's a really good card. It's an Ori, and like that card like had a limit where you had to keep escaping cards to keep doing it. This card you just do over and over and over again. So I think this card is a big, big deal. Bombin Common, I think it's going to be a phenomenal limited card. I think it's going to be an excellent card in standard Auras decks. I think this card's just a banger. Really, really easy. It's almost like a sleeper card too, right? But this card's excellent. Love it. Lightwheel enhancements. I think this card's a banger. And also, I think it's important to not discount set mechanic cards. Very, very often, like you look at the Ring Tempt You card and you go, I don't know, is that good? It's a set mechanic for a reason, folks, all right? Like, they want these cards to be good. That's the whole point. So, I think this card's an absolute banger. Love it. Love it. And there's also cool aura and like heroic stuff in Pirates. That's also. So, banger, Bombin Common, big fan, Lightwheel enhancements. Good stuff. Lotus Guard Disciple. 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer. Whenever ETBs, creature or vehicle gains lifelink and indestructible to end of turn. So, of course, Windrake is not a very good limited card anymore. Windrake is basically unplayable. A 2/2 flyer for 3. But I think this card does enough to be totally fine, honestly. Lifelink's great. Indestructible's great. Pushing through attackers is great. You know, you just like play this on turn 3, attack for 2, gain 2 life. That's cool. You know, and then later in the game, you can target a larger creature. Kind of cool, too. It's a way to push damage. It's a way to push through and gain life. Card's fine. You know, is it great? I don't think it's great. But I think if you're aggressive and you've got, you know, looking for ways to push through and stuff, this card seems totally fine. That being said, I could see it just not being good enough because like a Windrake's kind of eh. But yeah, card's good. I like it. Good limited card. Nesting Bot. Wake up. We got our sleeper card, and this card is fantastically awesome. 1 mana for an artifact creature robot. Beep boop. 1/1. Start your engines. And again, having cheap start your engine cards is really important, so you can get that ball rolling immediately. Whenever it dies, make a 1/1 colorless servo token. Awesome. Max speed. This creature gets +1/+0. Also awesome. So the Doom Traveler sort of like play a thing, get a thing, when it dies, get a thing card has often been good here and there. This being an artifact is like monstrous. It's so good for Convoke decks, for Gleeful Demolition, if there's some sort of affinity deck, you know, all sorts of synergy stuff. Sacrificing artifacts is easy, sacrificing creatures is easy, and it starts your engines for your engine stuff, and it even gets a little bonus if you get to your max speed too. I think this card is awesome. A definite constructed player. Good card and limited as well. Obviously, this card just played straight up probably isn't good enough, but it has so many potential synergy possibilities. This card's awesome. So, Boros Convoke might be back on the menu, honestly. Maybe you can drop the blue and get back to being straight Boros. But yeah, great stuff. Love Nesting Bot. Awesome card. My sleeper card for the set. Just a little guy, you know? Just awesome stuff. Perilous Snare. 3 mana for an artifact rare. Once again, start your engines. Whenever this artifact enters, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until this artifact leaves the battlefield. So it's just a artifact O-ring, which is good. We haven't actually had an artifact O-ring before. We have Glass Casket, which is legal right now. But I think as far as a pure 3 mana artifact O-ring, this is the first one. And it also has max speed. Tap, put a counter on a creature or vehicle you control as a sorcery. So that being said, oh yeah, it's loot. Loot's in jail. What did he do? What did he do? You know. This is a card where this is more of like a control-y card. Like in limited, this card's great, right? It's an O-ring. You push a blocker out of the way and get into your damage and stuff. And constructed, this sort of O-ring card is probably going to be played in more controlling decks and more mid-range decks and more artifacty decks. So start your engines here is not nearly as important. But again, there's a lot of cool artifact stuff from past sets. Simulacrum Synthesizer. Whatever else it might be. So this card is definite player constructed if it's going to be a cool artifact deck. It's obviously just a great limited card just in general, like an absolute bomb in limited because you can just kill a thing and then add counters everywhere. But yeah, definitely a great card, constructed and limited. And loot, I don't know. I'm not a big loot fan, whatever. Pride of the Road, 4 mana for a 2/5 zombie cat warrior.
It's a cat. Just a cat.
I guess. Vigilance also has start your engines and then max speed. Beating combat on your turn, target creature or vehicle you control gains double strike on a turn. This is a banger limited card, right? That 2/5 stat line's pretty damn big. And then I don't think getting maxi would be that difficult in limited. And giving double strike is a huge limited effect too. So Pride of the Road seems great. Great limited card. Nothing more really. Just a good one. You know, good limited card. Going to kill a lot of opponents, I think. Great with flyers also. Great stuff for limited. Ride's End, 5 mana for an instant. We've seen this card like 5 times already, but not this good, all right? This is a 5 mana spell. It's an instant. Costs 3 less to cast if you target a tap permanent. This one, however, is exile target creature or vehicle. So Seize from Slumber and the other one were both just destroy target creature. This is much, much better. And both of the cards we're seeing a small amount of play in Standard alongside Up the Beanstalk as a way to have like a go for throw that draws a card too. So this is a big upgrade because exile is so much better than destroy is. Exiling curiosity or enduring curiosity and whatever else it might be. Heartfire Hero. So this card is has a definite chance of constructed for sure, alongside Up the Beanstalk. And then of course it's a totally reasonable limited card as well. In limited, this card is just kind of is what it is with usual stuff. But constructed, I think this card is like a serious sleeper. Really, really good stuff. Big upgrade. Next up is Roadside Assistance. The mana for an enchantment or an enchanted creature or vehicle. Whenever it enters, make a 1/1 pilot token, which saddles as though it had 3 power. And then enchanted permanent gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. It's not that big of a stat bonus for a 3 mana aura, but getting a body is pretty cool too, honestly. So this is what I was saying about there being a lot of ways to kind of push the vehicles, right? So that first vehicle, they're like 3/3 flyer for 3 or whatever. Like this is a card you can put on the vehicle and then crew with it immediately. So there are a lot of ways to crew vehicles in the set that are not just like play Grizzly Bear and tap it. So this card seems pretty good. Lifelink's obviously a very, very powerful ability in limited. And then a lot of the vehicles tend to be a little oversized. So if you put this on a vehicle that's kind of big and then crew it, that's kind of cool too. So card seems fine for limited. I'm not sure if it's like great or not. I'm not sure how good how the overall feel of the format's going to be as far as kill spells and stuff, but it seems pretty good. Salvation Engine. Woo, that thing's big.
Good lord.
5 mana for a 6/10 booty artifact vehicle. Other artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. When this vehicle attacks, return up to 1 target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. However, it's got crew 6. 6 is so many. 6 is like, imagine having 6 power in play just randomly. You're just like, oh yeah, I can just pump this. That being said, it does pump the artifact creatures. So if you have 2 1/1 tokens in play, it can crew it, which is kind of cool, I guess. That's fair. But I don't know. 5 mana is a lot. Crew 6 is a lot. This is a very, very powerful card. But I don't know. That's really, really high up there on the mana curve, of course. So I don't know. And then like the reanimate effect, like you could like bring back Portal to Phyrexia maybe. But do you like want to do that? I don't know. So I don't know. This card is I guess like you could play it in like some sort of like artifact token deck with a bunch of servos and stuff. And then like you keep making tokens, you can crew, and then I don't know. But I think this card is just too clunky overall. We'll see. But there are some cool artifacts available in Standard. I don't know. In limited, this card's a banger as long as you're playing on artifact creatures because like you can set up a game state where this card's pretty good. But yeah, I don't know. Not sure. Seems clunky. I could be wrong here. It could be very powerful. Skyseeker's Chariot. It's meant for a 3/3 flying vehicle. And as it enters, choose a non-land card name. Activate abilities of sources with the chosen name cost 2 more to activate. So this is just like sort of like a semi-pithing needle-y kind of creature. It's only 2 more, so it's still usable, obviously. But it also can use mana abilities. So you can name Llanowar Elf with this, and they can't use your Llanowar Elf. That being said, once again, Crew 2 is a lot more than Crew 1. If this card was Crew 1, I would be all about it. At Crew 2, it seems fine. Not incredible, just fine. Is cool against Kaido, is cool against Planeswalkers, is cool against like Agatha Soul Calder and stuff like that too. But I don't know. You know, it's not actually a threat by itself. And again, Crew 2 is just so much more than 1. Probably a playable card constructed. In limited, this card is less exciting because like there's just less consistency among the cards you're going to name in your opponent's deck. But yeah, I don't know. Card's cool, I guess. Spectacular Pile-Up. 5 mana for a sorcery. All creatures and vehicles lose indestructible until end of turn, and then destroy all creatures and vehicles. Why not just cast Sunfall? Right? Like,
Do a barrel roll.
I just cast Sunfall, you know? So constructed-wise, until Sunfall leaves, this card's kind of meh. It does have cycling, which is kind of cool, but like, if you're putting a swiper in your deck, you probably want to cast it. So, I don't know. Until Sunfall rotates the card, probably not a big deal. Once it does, cool, kind of interesting. But yeah, and then limited if this card's great. You know, good Wrath with a cycling buyout's kind of cool too. So good stuff. Spot Cycle Scouter. It's meant for a vehicle. It's a 3/2 ETB Scry 2 Crew 1. I think your draft deck would need to have some like pretty big vehicle synergies or artifact synergies to want to play this card. Seems kind of medium, honestly. Scrying is nice, but like, I don't know. You just play creature, you know? Like, you can't have that many vehicles, so... So, there's a cycle of legendary, uncommon vanilla creatures in this set. That part's awesome. Cool. Love vanilla creatures. Really, really fun. They spoiled all of them but the white one. All right. So everyone's like, what's Lightwheel going to be? And I'm like, it's definitely going to be a vanilla 3/1 for 1. Like, so exciting. Isamaru for a new age. For those who don't know, back in my, but back in my day, all right, Savannah Lions was the bomb, right? So 1 mana for a 2/1 cat. That card's in standard right now. No one cares. But that was a great creature. Then they printed Isamaru Hound of Kanda, which was 1 mana for a 2/2, but it was legendary. And it was a beautifully elegant design because now you have this creature that's better than Savannah Lions, but it's a legend. How many do you play? Do you play 4? Do you play 3? Do you play 2? Do you risk drawing multiple copies of it? It was a fun deck building puzzle. It was really interesting to have this vanilla creature that was so interesting from like a deck building and gameplay perspective. Do you kill the Isamaru? Or if they have more in their hand, you know? So these days, Isamaru is a joke, Savannah Lions is a joke. So power creep wise, I think a 1 mana 3/1 legendary is like not too good. And it also brings back that really exciting Isamaru like legendary tension. And then being an artifact's cool too for synergy stuff as well. I would have absolutely loved this card for 1 mana 3/1 exactly as is. But they wussed out and they made it a 3/3 for 2, which is obviously a good limited card, but Watch Wolf is not really making it this day and age. Yeah, so pretty sad about this card, honestly. It's obviously very good and limited, but yeah, bummer. Missed opportunities. Swiftwing Assailant. 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer. Start your engines. Max speed. It's a Sarah Angel. You gotta really, really be hitting your engines here, because this card's, I mean, I guess it's okay as 3/3 flyer. I don't know. This kind of card would have been like absolutely bonkers and like limited 10 years ago, but 3/3 flyer for 4 doesn't do it anymore. You know, it's just like only okay. So probably mostly fillery, but still fine. And then of course, obviously if you hit max speed, it's great, but. Tune out. 4 mana for a sorcery. Return target artifact card from the graveyard to the battlefield. If it's a vehicle, it becomes an artifact creature. That's kind of cool. But yeah, this is just, you know, return target portal Phyrexia, basically. You know, we had Refurbish in Standard, you know, years ago. That was a very playable card, returning God Pharaoh's Gift. I imagine tune-up returning Portal to Phyrexia is a similar thing. There is a lot of good graveyard hate in this format, to be fair. Both Leyline and Rest in Peace are legal, and Ghost Vacuum. But this sort of Refurbish effect is powerful and constructed if it works. And in Limited, probably not worth it. But constructed-wise, pretty cool. Unswerving Sloth. 5 mana for a 5/5 Sloth Mount. Whenever it attacks while saddled, it gains indestructible within a turn, and then untap all creatures you control. This is a banger limited card. So that untap all creatures you control effect makes Saddle 4 so much more palatable because you can just untap your, so you can tap all your things and crew it and then attack and then untap them, which is great too. So good limited card. It's a little clunky, and then be aware in limited of the threat of getting blown out, right? Where you tap your whole team to crew this, you go to attack and untap them, and they just kill it, and now you're just tapped out, dead on board, basically. So be aware of that, but this is a pretty good top end limited card. Good stuff. Valor's Flagship. Wow. Damn. Coming down to meet your leader or whatever. 7 mana for a 7/7 flying first strike lifelink vehicle. It's got crew 3. It has the Decree of Justice cycling cost, 3 and X cycling. And when you cycle it, you make X pilots that, of course, crew for 3 and not 1. So this is a pretty powerful card. You know, obviously Decree of Justice is a little slow these days, but still a pretty powerful effect. This is a big vehicle that puts itself into the graveyard. So if you're going to reanimate it or bring it back, kind of cool. Plus a little Grease Fang. And then, you know, the body's huge, obviously. And then the cycling cost is pretty cool, too. Not hard to crew if you're cycling and stuff as well. So definitely a powerful card. Limited bomb for sure. And then constructed, I mean, probably not, but like weirder things have happened. Also, if you return this with the refurbish, that makes it into a creature, right? Yeah, actually, so like that's actually really good, right? You just end step, cycle this, and then bring it back with tune up, and it's just a 7/7 flying first strike lifelink that can't be go for the throated. Pretty cool. Pretty cool card. Cool stuff. Voyager Glide car. Uh-oh.
It's a trap.
It's a trap, folks. This card looks like Warden of the First, you know. What's it called? The card that's in Convoke. I forgot the name of it. But it's a lot worse. 1 mana for an artifact vehicle. It's 2/3. Whenever EDB scry 1, then you can tap 3 other untapped creatures you control and crew it, and also put a counter on it and against flying on a turn. And then it has crew 1. So now, the reason why Warden of Inner Sky is so good is you can tap random just junk. You know, you can tap clues and maps and whatever crap you have in play. So you play a Warden, you play an Inspector, and that's enough to tap it immediately. Tapping 3 creatures is a lot of creatures, all right? So that's pretty tough. It's not a creature by itself. This doesn't help you convoke out your Knight Errant of Eos. I think this card's like pretty bad, honestly. It's okay. You know, I feel like if it like maybe scryed 1 on attacks rather than enters maybe. But yeah, just not very exciting. Can't tap itself, which is a big deal also. I think this card is pretty bad. I think this card, like, it, you know, at first glance, like, Chat GPT might think this would go into a Convoke deck, but, like, and actually, like, thinking about it, I think this card's just, like, pretty bad. So, for limited, this card's good. You know, obviously, as the game goes on, you can grow it, and you can scry, it's very, very cheap, but for constructed, not really a fan. It's a trap card for the set. And then Voyager Quick Welder is here. I actually love this card. 3 mana for a 2/4 artifact creature. Makes all of your artifacts cost 1 less to cast. I think this card is like gonna be a good limited card for sure. Like an outside shot at constructed. Doesn't have to cut down or go for the throat or a lot of the bread burn spells. Making things cheap is like, it's a big deal. Cost reduction or whatever. It blocks okay. It's probably not good enough, you know. But I think this card is kind of gas. I don't know. It kind of like needs to be cheaper for constructed and then a little more powerful for limited. So it might not get there overall. But the card is pretty cool. I think it's on an outside shot at constructed. A lot of artifact cards out there, you know, pretty powerful stuff. So, to recap in white, we've got best in show is Bulwark Ox. Our sleeper card is Nesting Bot. Our trap card is Voyager Glide Car. And our Bombin Common is Lightwheel Enhancement. So, YouTube folks, like, comment, subscribe. Let's get right into blue here on stream, of course. Don't go nowhere. Watching on YouTube. These are all going up over the weekend. So, we're going to have white, blue, black, red, green, multicolor, and colorless. 7 different videos going up over the whole weekend. Make sure you like all of them, support the content, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. And let's do this.